we're going to talk about why Fearsome is popping back up in the meta. And first of all, to clarify, when I say Fearsome, I'm talking, at least these days, about an Allegiance Shadow Isle deck centered around Wraithcaller and other Fearsome units. While some indoor lists do still run Wraithcaller, they're very different from what I'm talking about here. When I say Starspring is weak to Fearsome, indoor doesn't qualify. Callista and Mist Wraiths spawned off of a Wraithcaller are the only Fearsome units in a deck like that, so it doesn't get the go wide with 4 Fearsome units effect that we're looking for to laser focus certain strong decks in the meta. So why is Fearsome so good? Well, aside from being such a strong mechanic that it is a deck building consideration, it's not a significant factor, but I would say it is a contributing factor to the hard fall off of Twisted Fate Swain, which does not have a lot of Fearsome blockers in the deck. Wraithcaller is also just one of the cheapest, most efficient +1s in the game, and sometimes it's just that simple. While Avalanche does deal with all of the Mist Wraiths constantly raining down on you, it doesn't feel like enough, especially when Stalking Shadows and other Shadow Isle draw spells are taken into consideration, and that's because none of the key cards in the deck, namely Wraithcaller and any of your champions, die to Avalanche. Now, there are 3 main Wraith decks that we're going to take a look at the moment: Targon, Demacia, and Ionia, running Pale Cascade, Relentless Pursuit, and Go Get It, respectively. Each of them is only running 3 copies of a single off-region card, so the chances of missing their allegiance are a lot lower than we've played with in the past, as generally 6 is considered the upper limit for playing allegiance card. So, what's the difference between each list? Targon Mist Wraiths is the best option if you're expecting an Avalanche-heavy meta. All 3 versions run Elise, but Pale Wraiths are the only one to run Callista instead of Nocturne. Not only does Pale Cascade protect a unit from Avalanche, but Callista makes the card actively feel like a detriment to play. Leveled Callista reviving Wraithcaller is near backbreaking for a lot of decks, as that consistent +1 spam onto an ever-growing unit is nearly impossible to deal with if it goes off even once. Now, it is worth noting that Risen Mists on its own is a phenomenal card for playing around board wipes in general and still getting in your big hits, but having the extra layer of protection in Callista and Cascade helps solidify an early advantage and not take things to the late game. Demacia Wraiths, while it could play Lucian, isn't quite there yet. It is Nocturne Elise. Relentless Pursuit is a very linear card. I don't think I need to explain what it does for a deck like this, but one thing I do want to highlight is off-turn Harrowings, a play that actually got Connex a game win in the finals of the Puro Furioso tournament on November 15th. As you can see, Vig has 2 Ruination in hand, but committed a Vengeance earlier in the turn to preserve life to stave off the Doom Beast finisher, and instead fell victim to a post-combat Harrowing. When you're the aggressor in a matchup, which you often will be since Wraithcaller lets you maintain a wide, powerful board, your opponent is forced to commit mana in combat, making plays like this more commonplace, especially since fast speed removal is going to be costly. So, off-turn Harrowing, post-combat Harrowing, it's all good. And Go Get It offers flexibility. There's a lot of great targets for this deck. Doom Beast, while it doesn't give you the ability on the summoned ephemeral copy, it does still give you that 0 mana Doom Beast in hand if you need just that little bit of extra reach. Here we see Hunter V using it in his top 4 match of Duels of Runeterra 17 on a Frenzied Skitterer in order to survive the turn, and of course Wraithcaller is the prime target. If you want to run it all out in one turn and you have summoned no Mist Wraiths prior, so worst case scenario, you're looking at 9 mana, 2 4/3s, only 1 ephemeral, and 3 4/2s with Fearsome, all for 2 cards and 9 mana, including spell mana, so you can run it out on turn 6, as you're seeing here in the clip. Now, that is some insane potential, and of course, you can use it reactively to save one of your units, especially since you are a deck who will usually stumble on early turn tempo, and then sort of sit on this spell mana that you accrued from either missing turn 3 or missing turn 1 and 2 or something along those lines. You're generally going to have not a big commitment if you do want to hold open that Go Get It, despite it being 5 mana. And then to round things out, I just kind of wanted to show you the shell. This is 37 cards, so this is what it's going to look like if you wanted to build one of these decks from the ground up. Now, there are a couple of flex spots. The Fading Memories aren't necessarily pivotal to the deck. Sure, they do offer some Go Get It-like potential in a non-Go Get It version, but they don't feel mandatory, at least in my opinion, by any means. Harrowing, also not mandatory, but it is a great closer, just because you are going to get a little bit of permanent value out of it, similar to the Anivia decks. When you're resummoning Wraithcallers, those Mist Wraiths are going to be permanent and probably pretty big. Risen Mist, just absolutely insane of a card for a deck like this. Being able to open attack while still developing a unit, playing around things like pre-combat Ruination and Avalanche, just makes it feel worth it to throw early Mist Wraiths into early board wipes or trade with them aggressively. things like that. Stygian Onlooker, obviously, pretty good one drop. Just nothing else really needs explaining here. Whenever you're at a point where you're running Arachnoid Horror, that's when I feel willing to call you a Fearsome deck. Leveling Elise, not a priority. Definitely not a priority. That's why we're not seeing things like Vile Feast, although it is something that has been played in the deck. As I had mentioned, there's a couple of flex spots. But yeah, overall, this is what the deck looks like, which is kind of the point of a video like this, right? And there you have it, a quick, painless rundown on Fearsome decks. Now you know what they look like, the cards that they're running, the considerations for bringing them into different metas. Don't you feel a little bit better about the deck? That's going to do it for me today, everybody. My name is Boulevard. Be sure to follow me on Twitter from the BLVD. Get the rundown on when and where I'm casting each weekend. As always, good luck in your tournaments.